I think of this scheme with my 2 college roommates to rob a bank.
What? Oh my gosh.
I mean, talk about the desperation. So we basically pull this check scam. We have a getaway car. We steal a woman's checks, and 2 of us are in the drive-through. She calls the police immediately. We leave there in the car. So she comes out waving $100 bills, and we end up going on a bender that night. And
So wait, you got away with it?
we got away with it. Well, not really. So
Kinda.
this is what happens.
Hey, everybody, this is Will Gordon from the Willpower Podcast, briefly coming on before this next excellent episode to remind you all that did you know that 76%, you heard that right, 76% of you that follow my content regularly have not subscribed to my channel yet. And I'm really wondering why that is. So if you could, the easiest and freest way to help support my show is to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of it. Like it, share it, send it to people that you think it might help. Because that's what I'm doing here. I've been through it. I lost my liver. I lost my kidney. I had such a severe alcohol addiction that I feel you. Okay. I understand what you're going through. And I'm really hoping that these stories are helping. So if you want to hear these stories keep coming, then please hit that subscribe button. It'll be the best decision that you'll ever make. Thank you so much for supporting me. And I really hope you enjoyed this next episode. I heard it was a pretty good one. Take care, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Willpower Podcast. Today's guest spent over 30 years as a clinical psychologist helping addicts and codependents climb out of hell, only to wake up one day and realize she was living in the exact same hell she was treating. Dr. Sarah Michaud became the ultimate people-pleasing therapist, and then watched her own life spiral into addiction and codependency so severe that she became the patient she never thought she'd be. Out of that fire, she wrote the book Code Crazy, One Psychologist's Escape from Codependency and Addiction, co-hosts the YouTube channel and podcast Leaving Crazy Town, and now spends her life proving that if a doctor of psychology can crawl out of the family disease, anybody can. Sarah cold emailed me a few weeks ago, and my transplant miracle reminded her of her own second chance at life. I've been counting the days for this conversation ever since. So everybody grab a coffee or a sparkling water. This one's going to hit home for a lot of us. So please welcome the brilliant, been there, raw, and rediscovered Dr. Sarah Michaud. How are you today, Dr.
Oh
Sarah
my gosh,
Michaud?
Will, it's so great to be here. I just discovered your channel. And yeah, I mean, you and I are really about being of service and helping other people. And that's what I'm about. So grateful to be here. And your
Yeah.
story is amazing. And I totally connected with it.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. And I love that we're actually demographically in the same area, which is such a cool. This is the first time that has ever happened, and I didn't know about it going into it. So that's so awesome. So we're gonna be buddies for life now, right?
Yes, absolutely. I know we live within a half an hour of each other.
I know. How amazing is that? What a wonderful coincidence. So my first question to you: you're a doctor of psychology who ended up in rooms yourself. When did you finally admit I'm the one who's crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in an alcoholic home, probably like lots of your viewers. And like you've described, always felt like I didn't belong, always felt different, always felt not good enough. I was super shy as a kid. And I had 4 brothers. I know you're the youngest of 4. And I joke around that I didn't know I was a girl till I was like 13 because I was a tomboy forever. And I think when I first drank when I was 16, and you've talked about the self-medication,
Yep.
the first time I drank, I could get emotional just saying this. I felt like it was the solution to all my problems.
Same.
I mean, I was at a party. When I was young, my first addiction was food. So I was really overweight as a kid, which is so hard when you're an adolescent and you're having the hormones and you're falling in love and getting crushes on every boy you meet. And you're in junior high school and high school and you feel not good enough and unattractive and like you're never going to get a boyfriend. And I remember the first time I drank, I was like, oh my God, this is it. I was funny. People laughed. I felt a part of, I felt connected. And like you, I don't think I ever socially drank in my whole life. I mean, from the minute I drank a lot. And it was like that from the beginning. And I drank only for 8 years, which is so strange to say, and then I got into drugs, and I really thank God for the drugs because the drugs, I believe, took me down a lot quicker, and I don't know if I could have drank a lot longer, but in those 8 years, I still can wake up in the morning and think about something that happened and get shivers up my spine. So, because of the lifestyle that incurred because of the drugs, I really I hit a bottom at 24 years old, and I could tell you it was I feel like I picked up alcohol and drugs, and it was just like I was in a run for 8 years. So I graduated from high school. By the time I graduated from high school, I was drinking all the time. I started doing cocaine. Back in the '80s, I got sober in 1984. So, I mean, it's been 42 years. And
Wow.
back in the '80s, cocaine was huge. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so weird to hear people talk about it now because I have this belief like, oh, it's passe, but it's really not. But I got really into cocaine. And the problem with cocaine is it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
So when you start doing cocaine, you start getting into legal trouble because you start doing behaviors to get money to get cocaine.
Mm.
So, one of the first stories I have is so I deferred to a college in Chicago, Lake Forest College, and I had gone to prep school. Talk about feeling like my parents had some money and I was flunking out of high school and they sent me to this prep school. Talk about feeling out of place. My drinking completely escalated. And so I deferred to a college and I went to Miami for a year. And in that 6 months or so that I lived in Miami, the cocaine use escalated. I worked as a waitress at a hotel in the winter, and I just got in so many jackpots. And when I came home from Miami, like in May of, I guess it's like 78, so I came home and I went out to Lake Forest College that fall, but I had a drug problem. And
Mhm.
here I'm going out to this, like, if you didn't get into Ivy League schools, you ended up at Lake Forest College. And I'm a drug addict, I'm an alcoholic, and I go home at Thanksgiving and I owe this Coke dealer a ton of money. So I decide to get fronted an ounce of Coke and I take it back to college, and the problem with that is by the time I got there, within 2 days it was gone and I hadn't sold any of it. So now I not only owe the Coke dealer thousands of dollars, I owe them like several more $1,000.
Oof.
So I think of this scheme with my 2 college roommates to rob a bank.
What? Oh my gosh.
I mean, talk about the desperation.
Yeah.
I'm like a kid from the suburbs of Boston, and I'm in college thinking of how am I going to get thousands of dollars? So we basically pull this check scam. We have a getaway car. We steal a woman's checks. And so two of us are in the drive through, one of us goes in the front, and we're in the drive through and we put the checks in and we look at the teller, and we didn't know it at the time, but she knew the person the person whose name was on the checks. So she knew that we weren't those people.
Right.
And so she calls the police immediately. We leave there in the car and we pick up our friend in the front of the bank and she's cashed the check. So she comes out waving $100 bills and we end up going on a bender that night. And
So wait, you got away with it?
we got away with it. Well, not really. So
Kinda.
this is what happens. We get back to the dorm, and 3 friends of ours had gotten arrested thinking that they were us. So they came back to the dorm and they said, "Look it, we were arrested. They thought we were you. They told us to tell you to show up at the police station tomorrow morning." And so the 3 of us went down to the police station the next morning. We were arrested, we were booked. My father had the picture of me with my black number plate held up in front of me in a lockbox for years to remind me how far down I went.
Oh,
That a check scam is a felony. I mean, that's a federal offense. And so I got kicked out of college. Long story short, we basically made it sound like it was a college prank. And I was, kicked out of college. And the crazy thing about that story is I ended up at a drug house and kind of overdosing and ended up at McLean Hospital eventually. But like you've talked about on your podcast, the bottom line is the drugs and alcohol, without me knowing it, were ameliorating and managing my pain, my low self-esteem, my self-hatred, feeling different, feeling like I was nothing, the resentments, the fears, the shame, all of that stuff. And it wasn't working. That's the
Hmm.
trouble. It not only doesn't work, someone said recently, what we do to avoid our pain ultimately becomes the source of our pain.
Yes.
And
That's
that's the way
so
we're
true.
right?
That is so true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm using these substances to deal with pain, and ultimately now I have that as another source of pain. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's crazy. I mean, you know all this stuff, so it's
Yes.
this is gonna be a fascinating conversation. So you did 5 years after that intense situation that you went through, being so young. I mean, you were young though, but young in the '80s was different. I felt like when you were 23, 24, you kinda like were already like getting a house and getting like a job,
Well,
and you
I
already
mean,
had
I
like,
wish. I mean, I was really just kicked out of college, tried school a couple more times. I mean, like you talk about, I mean, when you're, it's funny because you were a teacher. Like, I never made it anywhere until I got sober. For people that are looking to get sober young, like, you're never too young because
mhm,
the way I felt at 24 was really like, I have nothing. I
yeah,
mean, and the internal state of like feeling lost and feeling crazy and and that whole question of like, why am I like this? Why am I seeking? I always felt like I was running from something. I just didn't know what I was running from. And I really think I was just running from myself, but I never knew it.
yeah,
Anything outside of myself. The thing about getting sober, I always think is, and you talk about this, it's about getting comfortable with what's happening. So identifying my feeling states, experiencing my feeling states, and expressing my feeling states. And the problem is, when I got sober, I didn't even know what a feeling was. I was either manic or asleep. I mean, when I first got sober, my system for like the first couple of years was on hyperdrive. I was just staying busy. I was going to different support groups. I was going to therapy. I was working. I was getting in relationship after relationship after relationship, and I was using other things to distract because I didn't know what was wrong with me. My life was getting a lot better. I went back to school. I started doing all this, having achievements, but I was still running from myself for a while.
when do you think that you stopped running away from your life and running towards it?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think it's on a continuum, right? Because when I got sober, I definitely felt like I had a second chance. Like, oh my gosh, I felt alive for the first time, even though it was terrifying to have feelings. I also was grateful and I was connecting with other people. I was creating friendships and I got a job, and then I went to college, and then I went to graduate school. So I was having a lot of successes and I felt alive. I also feel like I was reliving my adolescence. You know that saying that you go back to the age you are when you first started drinking? Like, because I had kind of never had a boyfriend in my early, my teen years, I feel like once I got sober, I was, like, reliving that experience, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I was going on dates and, doing all that stuff that I never did.
Yeah,
Um
you know what's funny about that? It's and
Yeah,
I don't mean to cut you off because you're
please.
I love it. You just keep going. Everything you're saying is so interesting. So continue to do that. But that that point that you just mentioned about like how you go back to that age that you were when you first started drinking, that's how I've been feeling lately. Like ever
Got
since
it.
I've been sober 2 years and 8 months now. So over 1,000 days, and I think it's 1,020 today. Exactly, which is cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is great. But like going back to that mindset, I feel like I'm rediscovering who I am now. Like the last 10 years of my life was stifled and kind of
Yes.
blocked and put like a little pin in it. And now
Yes.
it's like 10 years later, I'm picking
Yes.
up the pieces, redoing my life, redoing my finances, redoing my relationships, redoing the relationship I have with my wife, like having to rework on that, like all these things. But like you're right, like going back to that point of that first, that's where I was living for a
Absolutely.
whole decade. I was living in that immature, kind of like not ready to grow up Peter Pan world, you know?
Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, I have patients that come in and they get sober well, and they're suddenly crying. Maybe they're 50 years old and they're crying about their high school sweetheart that rejected them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're you really are reliving and re-experiencing to a certain degree things that you never kind of let your system experience. You know, someone may have had a parent die and been drunk through it all and then suddenly feel this wave of grief about that parent dying. So you're right. I mean, for me, we talk about the underlying causes and conditions, right? That, alcohol to me and alcohol is but a symptom, right? It's a way you and I happen to choose, or I do believe I had a predisposition. I mean, alcoholism is in my genes.
Hmm.
And so the minute I picked it up, I fell in love, and that was my story. But I also know there's tons of different kinds of alcoholics. I mean, I had a guy that retired and started drinking and became an alcoholic. So, I mean, we're not all the same in that department, but, it is about what am I trying to numb and escape from? And so when I got sober, that insecure, vulnerable kid that never felt heard, the person that grew up in that chaos, that always was anxious, I always felt like a horse in the starting gate. That's how I describe it. I always felt like I had this low level of anxiety, and from as far back as I can remember. And when I think back, my mom was the alcoholic, my dad was the codependent, he was the rager, trying to get her sober, angry all the time, trying to control things. I had 4 brothers, the family was in chaos all the time. There was also some great stuff. I mean, it's not one way or the other. But that low level of anxiety when you're growing up in alcoholism, you're always waiting for something to happen.
Hmm.
And that feeling was in my system. And so when I got sober, I wasn't aware that that low level anxiety was about my history. I just thought I kind of had a lot of energy. So in those first few years, I was going to meetings all the time. I was, dating this person. I was getting involved in this activity. I was doing all these things, but I didn't have the realization I was necessarily running until I could stop long enough and realize, wow, I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. I am feeling a lot of agitation. What is that about? And it's interesting you talk about your 1,000 days because at around 2 to 3 years, we used to say in the old days is when the shit hits the fan.
Mm.
Meaning, at 2 years, when you're kind of grounded, suddenly you're, like, getting used to this sobriety thing,
Yeah.
stuff for me started to percolate. My history, what had happened, I started to feel angry a little bit. We used to call the 2nd year the anger year because suddenly I saw myself as this really nice person, but now I'm irritable a lot. So, I mean, feelings do start to come up and you start thinking about, geez, what was going on before I started
Yeah.
drinking? You know?
Yeah. That's such an interesting point. It's like, and I wonder what the studies and research shows now after those 2, 3 years, but I really do feel like there's a lot of weight there and a lot of truth there because I
Yeah.
know what you mean by that. But yeah, you're right. After that 2, 3 year mark, I can see it because now you're just sober and you're having to deal with all your shit, be honest,
Yes.
But it's like
Yeah.
now it's you're having to do it with a sober mind, and it's really difficult to do that inner deep mirror work if I'm
Yes.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like you say, if you had 10 years of dealing with I mean, the thing with the liver transplant on, like, a seriously compromised body
Yeah.
is I'm sure so much of it is physical. The focus becomes, like, physical maintenance or
Yep.
physical survival. And then you get sober and the physical piece is kind of put back together. But what about the
Mhm.
psychological history, right? What about
Yes.
the thoughts and the feelings? What about the repressed shame? What about the repressed anger? What about the repressed fear? What about the sadness? I mean, stuff happens to us. This is the thing with codependency. Well, I'll just give you a
Yeah,
quick
let's let we can
codependency
segue
part.
into that as well, yeah.
Yeah, because it's part of it. So when we're young and we're interacting with our caretakers and others, right? We learn these ways of relating. And basically, they're all ways on how we can stay safe. So, say, for example, your dad's an angry person. And when you're around, you learn to kind of people please or manipulate or make him okay or focus on his feelings because you don't want him to be angry because you want to feel safe. So
Mhm.
you learn this way of interacting with another human, our caretakers mainly, that ultimately become your personality. Say your mom was depressed and for you to feel okay, you became the clown. You wanted to cheer her up all the time. You took care of her. You wanted to make her happy. So you become the personality to adapt to her. So we learn these ways of kind of being okay and feeling okay in childhood. But what we don't realize is those become survival skills that we ultimately use in our later relationships. We don't say at 18 when we move out of the house, oh, I survived for these last 18 years by these personality traits, and now I'm going to get rid of them. It's not like that. We don't realize that we're being driven by these ways of being in relationship that now are the ways we interact.
Mhm.
And the problem is they detach us from what we truly think and feel because we're surviving. So, say for example, and why I'm bringing that into the codependency is those traits ultimately become our codependent traits. So, a people pleasing behavior, if I grew up with an angry dad, now I'm people pleasing to my boss. Now I'm people pleasing to my wife. And the trouble with that is I'm not necessarily in touch with, geez, what am I really feeling in this
Mm.
conversation with my wife? Why am I trying to make her happy? Maybe I feel different. Maybe I feel different than she does. Maybe we're going to have a conflict, but I'm afraid of that conflict. So codependency is almost like the classic definition is my focus is more on someone else's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors than my own.
Mm.
So you matter more than I do. So the focus is external rather than internal. But really, it's more about I can't really be myself because I'm afraid of what's going to happen with you.
Yeah.
You
Wow,
see what
you
I'm
just
saying?
nailed yeah, you just nailed my childhood.
Yes.
My father was a great father, he really was, very strict, old school Irish Catholic, like, do the right thing when no one's looking, work hard, give it your best. But that can be daunting, it can be exhausting, it can be hard to live up to those standards, right? Especially with
Of
athletics and
course.
academics. But, like, he was also a very heavy drinker, so I saw that all the time, right? I witnessed him drinking every night. I was always trying to please him, making sure that he was okay, like, making sure he wasn't raising his voice, like, always trying to keep I was the glue of the family. That's how people would
Yes.
would 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 kind of reference me. He's like, "Oh, Will's the glue. He's always smiling. He's always happy." But, like, inside, I really wasn't always smiling. This was always a fake thing. And later on in life, right? Later on in life, that would rear its, like, ugly head as being insecure, and then insecurity feeds addiction, and addiction all of a
Yes.
sudden becomes my personality, and then I'm pleasing everyone, but I'm not doing the inner self-love anymore.
Yes. Well, you just nailed it, and we are the same. I mean, I always say that to people, you are me and I am you, because so often, no matter, I mean, in the childhood, someone with huge trauma and maybe not as much trauma. But the thing is, even if, say, you're not abused physically or sexually or whatever, it really, now all the research is about small t trauma, that growing up in alcoholism is a trauma in itself.
Mm,
And I'm just going to give you an example of this because it might relate to you. Is I had a client once who was like 8 years old. He came home from school and he had a drawing, and his mother was at the stove. His mother had like 5 kids. And he was all excited, and he ran up to his mother and he said, Mom, I want you to see this picture." And she turned around and she kind of moved her arm and swiped and said, "I don't have time for this right now." In that moment, that boy decided, "I'm not lovable.
mm,
Nobody loves me. Nobody's going to take care of me."
mm,
This whole, like, I'm not good enough. That one experience. Now, the fact is that mother was busy and
right.
overwhelmed, right? From her point of view, it has nothing to do with that boy.
Sure.
But you can have one interaction with a parent where the parent is not necessarily meaning to be mean or abusive or whatever. They're in survival also. And I'm not rationalizing any abusive behavior at all. I'm just saying that
Hmm.
the child interprets it in a way from our brains, right? So, all these things, you're describing it perfectly, though. You develop this way of being to survive in that environment. And now the question is it working? And can I get in touch with what, and this is the mantra in codependency recovery, what do I want? What do I need? Because the focus of the codependent is always about what you want and need. And I've been with people where they say, I don't even know what I need or want. Like, it takes time to even get in touch with, what am I feeling? What do I want? What's my response to that? To get into what I call my hula hoop rather than be in your hula hoop.
Yeah.
And so you describe that. So you're saying my dad drank and there was probably tons going on. And yes, it's always the both and, Will. Like, it's not either or, like, oh, we got fed, we had, a safe home or whatever. But it doesn't mean you got your emotional needs met, or you felt validated, or you felt heard, or you felt seen, or you felt loved.
Mm,
One of the biggest fears that I discovered in my recovery is the fear of not being loved, because my mom was an alcoholic. And in therapy work I did, and in 12-step work, you make a fear list. And I believe fear is at the bottom of a lot of addictive behavior and a codependent behavior.
mhm.
And it's not necessarily fear of like snakes or mice or whatever. They're the fears that develop, like you're saying, people pleasing behavior develops out of a fear. So it might be the fear of someone getting upset. It might be the fear of someone having a feeling. It might be the fear that I'm going to be hurt. It might be the fear of
Yeah.
abandonment or rejection. So we have these interpersonal fears that develop from our parental dynamic, and then we have a coping skill that comes out of the fear, which as a kid is a brilliant thing to do. Wow, I learned that I could try to people please and then I could feel okay.
Yeah.
Again, the problem is it doesn't usually work in a marriage or in adult relationships because we
Right.
dismiss who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you need to have your own self worth. There's something that you mentioned that I kind of want to circle back to. If someone comes to you and says, Dr. Michaud, I don't know who I am inside, and
Yes.
now I'm sober and it's really uncomfortable, and then maybe this isn't worth it. Right.
You're absolutely right in the sense. I will tell you, I remember when I first got sober, I didn't even know what colors I liked. So getting sober is about getting to know yourself. The thing with addiction is so often people come in when they hit some kind of bottom. So they're not even thinking about a why. They just want to have relief.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a saying that however many years it took to go into the forest, it's going to take to get out. And it's really about acknowledging that no matter what happens, your life is going to be better, your relationships are going to be better, no matter when you get sober.
When you
But
got sober, what were some of the obstacles that you found to be the most troublesome?
I think because I was 24, I had that "what am I missing" thing,
Mhm.
and, feeling like, "Oh, all of my friends are out drinking and having fun." The thing was, though, I had gotten so dark so quickly in my use, I mean, with the drugs, that it wasn't like I was having these memories of having great times in the last few years. I mean,
Mhm.
the last good times I had had were probably in high school.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but I do know that some of the obstacles were feeling like I was missing out. I know a lot of people have that.
Mhm.
Geez, I'm not part of the crowd. And that's why one of the things that's so critical is finding people that you
Mhm.
relate to and connect with, no matter what community that is. But it's really about sharing your truth because you have to have a place to go to talk about, like you're saying, things that are going to start coming up in recovery. You got to have a
Yeah.
place to go to talk about that.
Yeah, your environment's huge. I mean, I always say that too to people I work with. It's like you have to change your environment. Like if you're going down that one street where that liquor store is every day, right?
Yes.
And you have that impulse and you've been doing that habitually for God, who knows how long. For me, it was like
Yes.
10 years, right? It's
Yes.
really difficult to not take that left and go right in because that's just what you're accustomed to. But the second you start shifting things and going down Elm Street, you go down Broad
Yes.
Street or whatever, right? You don't give yourself the option to put yourself in really tough situations. You got to really,
Yes.
yeah, expand your reach, your in your circle because that's the saying. It's like you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. So don't underestimate your unorganized or disorganized friends because they'll bring you
Yes.
down if they're not making you higher, right? So that's really important is that we have that tight knit group that holds us
Yes.
accountable, right?
Yes. Yes, and it is a disease of isolation. I mean, I don't know what your beliefs are about alcoholism, but the dangerous part of alcoholism is it is qualified as a mental illness, and it is in the DSM, the Diagnostic
Oh yeah, I know.
Manual of Mental Disorders. And the thing that's so tricky about alcoholism is it's one of the few illnesses that tells you you don't have it, that the main component of addiction is it lies to you. Think about how hard that is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why one of the tools for people to get sober is I always say, look at the facts. When you do an intervention with someone, you've heard of interventions where families get together. And why interventions work is because what you ask family members to do is not talk about feelings, they talk about facts.
Mm,
So what they do is they say, "Mom, you forgot to pick me up at school 3 days in a row." "Mom, when I got home from school, you were passed out on the living room floor." They give facts because what breaks through denial are facts. If
right.
you get all amped up and, "Oh, you've hurt my feeling," then they're just gonna argue with you. But when you lay facts in front of an alcoholic, that's the thing that breaks through denial.
Hmm.
And the thing with alcoholics are denial, rationalization. We rationalize like, "Oh, it's my boss, it's my girlfriend, it's this, it's," minimizing. Will, I had a client once tell me he was sober for 3 months,
Hmm.
and then he went to a wedding, and I remember, "How was the wedding? Blah, blah, blah. I stayed sober, blah, blah, blah." And then he said he had had a glass of wine, and I said, "I thought you were 3 months sober." And he said, "Sarah, beer and wine isn't alcohol."
Oh my gosh.
But you know what the
Yeah.
crazier thing about that is? He believed
Believed it. Yes. And I did the same kind of stuff. Like I was justifying my actions. I was comparing
it.
myself to others, which is the worst thing you could do. Well, at least I'm not Billy over here or, Bobby. They're getting so drunk that they're passing out in the street. No, don't do that. Don't compare yourself because you're going to end up like Billy or, whatever. It's going to happen to you eventually. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, minimizing. I mean, we can minimize anything, and the fact is, if you're starting to wonder if you have an alcohol problem, most likely you have an alcohol problem. I
Yeah.
mean I mean, usually by then, it's already too late. Clients I've had that come in and, like, are ambivalent, like, "I'm not sure." And again, this is what I do. This was recommended years ago by a mentor of mine. You say, okay, if you don't want to stop drinking right now, I want you to tell me how much you're going to drink and when. And we're going to see if it's social drinking. So they'll say to me, okay, Sarah, I'll have 2 drinks on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, whatever. And of course, what happens? They never can do it. And they might come in and they might say, "Oh, yes, I did." And then I'll say, "Well, how big were the glasses?" "Oh, well, they were like this big," you know? So I mean, we can deny anything. Or they'll say, "Well, I drank, 2 Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but then I went out with buddies on Saturday." Okay, but that means you didn't do it.
Yeah.
So we can try to convince ourselves, but yeah, if someone believes they can socially drink, they can try it. But
Mm.
I have never had the experience with anyone when they're truly honest with themselves that they've been able to do it. I mean, you've seen people just suffer that have tried to get sober for a while and then relapse. Once you've crossed that line, whatever that line is for you, it's very hard to go back.
Yeah, that's so true. I was such a strange drinker that I would actually, when I would go out and socialize, I would get really banged up and drink a lot way before the
Yes.
socialing. So I would stand there with just, "Yeah, wow, he's only having like one drink the whole time. Like, look at this guy's
Right.
got it all together." Like, but in my head, I'm running out to my car, like chugging out of the like water bottles of vodka. I'm like, what actions are these? I'm at a bar and I'm running out to the car to drink because I don't want people knowing how much alcohol is actually in my
Yes.
system. Crazy,
Yeah.
right?
The hiding it must have gotten
It
so
was so
tricky
much
over
work,
time.
Dr. Misha. It was so much work, so much
I mean,
work.
I was thinking to myself too, the enabling, like you had a job and nobody said, like, geez, Will, we smell alcohol. I mean, did anybody ever say to you?
I was so I was so good at masking it, and I never drank when I was teaching, so I would never bring alcohol into school, but I would drink before. I would drink at 2:30
Right.
when the bell would ring. Like, I was a contradictory character, and I felt like a fraud because there I am as an educator trying to inspire hope and lifelong knowledge, and here I am just fading away into a
Right.
yellow-eyed monster who's absent from everything, right? I'm being mindful of the time here. The best piece of advice that you could give to someone who's realizing that they're drinking too much and that they have to get sober.
Oh,
What's
gosh.
the best way to kind of approach that with like the first nice, gentle, kind thing you could probably say to them?
They used to do that motivational interviewing where you'd list like 4 quadrants. What are the things you're getting out of drinking? What are the things you're not getting out of drinking? What would your life be different if you stopped? There's these 4 quadrants of like the
Sure.
pros and cons of stopping, and to me, it's really taking kind of an honest look and inventory of what it's doing to you. Because again, we can rationalize and deny forever.
Hmm.
And if you're having the thought, geez, maybe I'm having a drinking problem, I'm telling you that the best thing that you can do for yourself is reach out to someone for help, because your mind is not it's like that saying, you can't solve a problem of the mind with the mind, right?
Yeah.
So asking for help, talking to someone about it, listing some facts, like looking at the facts of your life, talking to someone that really cares about you, going online and taking a quiz. I don't know what you have on your own website, going on and looking for someone that you connect to and
Hmm.
seeing if you relate. I mean, that's
Hmm.
what's so great about this podcast. It's all about identification. If
Yeah.
you identify with someone, reach out for help. I mean, it's all
Absolutely.
about that reaching out for help because we can't do it alone.
Right.
You
It
know, that
inevitably comes down to you. You have to be the one that says enough is enough, or I need help. I just need
that's right.
pure, simple help. And we're so scared to admit
I
that to
know.
ourselves and say it
I
out
know.
loud, right? But the
Yes.
second that we do, I'm telling you, everyone out there watching, listening, your
That's right.
shoulders will
Yes.
relax. You'll feel relieved just the fact that you said it out loud to somebody else and you're not holding
Yes.
this deep, dark secret anymore. You can just embrace
Yes.
sobriety at the highest
I know
potential
the
it's supposed to be.
shame too.
Embrace
It's
that.
so you're right. And And it is possible. It may the problem is too, so many people think that it's everything else but the alcohol,
Yeah.
right? It's my job, it's my partner, it's my boyfriend that's doing this. And really just try and experiment and put down the alcohol for 30 days and see what happens. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Because it is the 2 things. It's a progressive illness. Will is a great example of that.
Hmm.
You may have started at some point where it wasn't a problem, but sometimes it crosses that invisible line
Hmm.
and then becomes a problem. And you don't have to be like, this isn't about, doctors and lawyers and everybody. I've met them all who are alcoholics. It is not the stereotype, hopefully people know that by now, of the homeless person with a, paper bag. It's
Right. That's not it.
everybody.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean, it's
everyone, all
everybody.
walks of life.
All walks of life.
There's no socioeconomic demographic
Yeah,
that shows, oh, this is alcoholism. No, it reaches everybody.
yes,
Does not,
everybody.
yeah, it does not segregate when it comes knowing that this person or this person. It doesn't matter.
No.
Well, Dr.
Oh
Misha,
my
this has
god.
just been a fantastic episode. If people want to reach out to you, get your book, anything, what's the best place to reach you?
Yeah, I mean, go to my website, drsarahmichaud.com, and I have an email connect on there. You can email me. We have the YouTube channel at Leaving Crazy Town, where we talk about codependency, and we have a great sense of humor, and we have tips and tools. And I also write for an online sober magazine called The Sober Curator. And it's kind of a pop culture sober lifestyle magazine. So I write reviews of books and movies and TV shows, and we have a lot of fun.
That
So,
sounds great.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
another option.
All right. Well, everyone, do that. Go check out her website. Go check out the book. She's just a fascinating person who has so much to offer. So please, everyone, go reach out to Dr. Sarah Misha. And everyone, thank you so much for watching this episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Send it to people that you think it might help, and be on the lookout for many, many more episodes coming soon. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thanks, Will.
Take care now.